Hey everyone. Hi, welcome. Really happy to be doing another Yoga Vidya Salon. We did one a few months ago, and it got quite a nice response. And thank you to everyone whose questions are pouring in. Honestly, in the last well, today we've got a lot of great questions. So I'll try to get through as many as possible. And we'll get going. So there was a question around how I made a living before I became a full-time yoga teacher, and it was a process. But I was my traditional education, my undergrad and master's degrees are in money and banking and economics and risk management. So I was a commercial insurance broker and a risk manager, so I had a career in the finance field for a long time, and I guess the impetus for me to do that was to make money and to be in a career that had some guarantees. And to be honest with you, it was not a good fit. So if those of you who maybe study the Bhagavad Gita at all know one of the pivotal teachings, there are many, but one of the pivotal teachings in the Gita is even though you might do someone else's dharma well, if you don't do your own dharma, you know, your life isn't going to be successful. So there was some measure of success in what I did in that field, but it certainly at some point there was a disconnect, there was a dissonance between my soul's calling, if you will, and what I did for a living. So I was, with the help of my family structure at that time, I was able to transition over the course of a couple of years to teaching very part-time to having a studio to transitioning to teaching full-time. So that's how I made a living before this, and I would say that due to my own diligence, my own resolutions, my own training, my own practice, and sort of taking some very large leaps of faith, I've been able to get where I am in terms of being able to make a living as a full-time yoga teacher. And more importantly to me, well, it is important to make a living, and in Tantra we say it's, you know, it's what we should do, have a measure of material success as well as spiritual success. But it's not just about making a living, it's about having a positive impact. And I feel like every day my circle of students is getting bigger in terms of numbers, but also getting greater in terms of the integrity and authenticity and the earnestness and the work that my students are doing, both for their own practice and for the people that they serve, whether they're, you know, official yoga teachers or they're moms or they're in the corporate world or whatever. The influence of what I do is rippling out to have such tremendous positive impact, and every day I see it growing. It's super, super gratifying. So I'm very grateful for that. There are a couple of questions around my own home practice, so I guess we can go there now, and I'll kind of bunch some of them together. Vanessa is here helping behind the scenes as always. My right arm, my left arm, whatever you want to say. A goddess needs many arms, yes? So what were the specific questions around my practice?
One of them was, how do you, what is your go-to practice if you are feeling disconnected or discouraged about something?
Okay, so go-to practice for feeling disconnected or discouraged. There are a couple of different ways that you could approach it. One is, as some of you know, if you've been studying this stuff with me, we have basically two powerhouses or two primary approaches, frameworks, modalities. One is the mind and one is the body, so or prana. So prana and chitta, right? Content and momentum. So you're having a hard time with something, you're feeling discouraged, you're feeling down. The approach could be around modifying those mental patterns, Chitta Vritti Nirodha, mastering the mind, through, through vichara, through actually examining the root of your thought, and, as I was saying earlier in the podcast that we just did, holding that darkness up to the light so the other side shows through, sort of what is your perspective, right-sizing that feeling, that incident, what is it really, what's the root cause of it? Is it a pattern, or is it something that's, a singular event? So examining the root of the emotion through cognitive means, and that's very helpful. The other way of refining your practice to see your way through a discouraging time would be the prana route, right? So literally going into the energy body. So things like practices around the Manipura chakra, the building of the fire. So practices like Uddiyana Bandha, Mula Bandha. So Bandha practices, very, very good for shifting energy, willpower, resolve. Keeping up with a daily practice around keeping that fire bright. Working with Vayu itself. So doing kriyas around pranavayu. If you don't know what those are, why don't you drop me a line, and we'll see if we can get you some resources or some teachings around what pranavayu is. Remember, pranavayu can be easily changed in one practice. Of course, because it's a subset, there's subsets of vata. They also can change back and revert back. But to shift you at least even temporarily out of a state of negativity or darkness or discouragement can help you to get traction and give you the wherewithal to make other moves to move you towards more positivity. Lastly, so that's two different ways, is to go like the cognitive, mental route, what's really going on, maybe doing some journaling, talking, doing asana or hatha practices, doing certain meditations, particularly Kriya meditations in the pranavayu category, or we have some very particular specific meditations around shifting mood in the repertoire of Yoga Vidya. I can't go into them in detail right now, but transforming negativity Kriya would be one of those. And I think the person who asked that question might know that. And then,
would you like to know?
Would I like to what?
To know who asked the question.
Who asked that question?
Jennifer Vidya.
Oh, Jen.
Question. She's
Yeah.
on.
Okay, hi Jen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one for you to do, transforming negativity. And the other one, another practice which sort of is a hybrid of prana and chitta, is yoga nidra. So yoga nidra with resolution. So sometimes in that space of low energy, discouragement, actually deeper relaxation, conscious relaxation, can really shift things. So even though we might feel down or squeezed or pressure, we're in dukkha, we think we need to get fiery, right? Sometimes it's not the fiery approach. Sometimes we need the akasha, the space. So actually deep relaxation can bring us both the resolution and the resolve. So that's a wonderful question, and I hope that that is helpful. So there isn't just one go-to practice. I think just sitting and sort of deciding for yourself which one, or maybe all of them in succession, will help. And this is all about us seeing what's underlying that particular level of reality. And all of the practices that I mentioned will help you to do that. What was the other question? There was another question about my practice, right?
There are several, actually.
Okay.
There is, just say real quick, Kristen just came on.
Hi, Kristen.
And Meg Hogan is on. And
Hi.
Abra's on.
Hi, Hi, ladies.
Okay.
Thanks for joining.
What kind of injuries have you sustained, and how have you had to modify your teaching
Oh,
and practice?
How have I had to modify teaching and practice? Okay, so injuries. Well, injuries are a pain in the neck, literally or figuratively, but they're also a teacher, and they're also a test of what you know. So, what kind of injuries have I sustained? Well, you've all seen in the past year I've been battling with a severely sprained ankle that still is troubling to me. So I've had to curtail a lot of different things, but it also makes me more what's the word I'm looking for? Able to kind of improvise around getting my physical, my mental needs met, my recreational needs met. You know, the inability to ride a bike for the last year, the inability to really go for a hike the last year. You know, I could sit and complain about it, but I'm not. The inability for me still to do a lot of asymmetrical standing poses, you know, pose after pose after pose, it still inflames the ankle. So as I said a minute ago, an injury is both a teacher and a test of what you know. So how much can you modify your practice? This is just my latest injury. You know, in the last 4 years, I've had 2 major surgeries. One was a reconstruction after I smashed my nose. So I smashed my face on a shower wall. It was, anyway. And also had some abdominal surgery. So how do I modify? Well, you know, in both of those cases, perfecting my, Adho Mukha Vrikshasana was not in the cards for me, right? So that's when your other practices come in to the fore, whether they're pranayama or meditation or doing some more of the cognitive practices around yoga, and, kind of doing what you can. I literally a few years ago, I'm going to say 10, because Myrtle was not too old, my dog. I was carrying her down the stairs in my old house and slipped on the stairs and broke a facet joint, T12L1. So I basically broke my back. And the 2 things that I could do for the 6 months that followed were, while I healed, were actually headstand. For some reason, that compression felt good and helped keep my core strong, and pranayama. And after that 6 months, where it's very limited in terms of my mobility, I came back into an asana practice that was even stronger, and I have to say that it was because of the pranayama that I was doing. So how does it affect the teaching? Well, here's another, it's a test of your skill set. How, say you can't move, you can't, do the thing that you're teaching. How refined can your verbal cues be? How adept are you at managing the room where you're using one of your students' bodies as a demonstration to make that seamless? So as a teacher, this is a wonderful test to your ability to adapt your teaching to the circumstance, whether it's in your own body, your own form, or something else that's going on in the room, in a class. And there's a debate around whether you should teach a posture, an asana, that you can't actually do. And I say, as long as you know what the principles are around it, and you developed your skill set to have what I call somatic empathy, the ability to put yourself in another person's body and to narrate from that place. This is my own distillation of an important teaching point, somatic empathy. You can teach just about anything. Of course, it's great to have that direct experience, but we're talking Hatha yoga, and asana is the grossest form of yoga that we teach. So in some ways, it's about moving body parts. So so move some body parts. Tell your people to move their body parts in such a way that the narrative seamless, and the narrative is going to get them there. So that's how I would say to modify. Of course, if you're debilitated, and you can't get up off the couch, you're not going to go out and teach an asana class. But I remember after having the abdominal surgery, I was in the middle of a teacher training, and it was an emergency surgery. Thank you, technology, that I was able to actually call in to the class and teach a lecture on a meditation and a practice, and they were only hearing my voice. But again, I would not have been able to do that and do it well without having my act together and knowing what I was doing, right? So I want to speak a little bit while we're on this topic of injury, is, just noticing, maybe using that injury in and of itself. I said it was a teacher. What precipitated the injury? How did it happen? Why did it happen? Was there a why, or was it a pure accident? I know for me, and the breaking of my back, I was rushing, carrying my dog down the stairs with two hands. I didn't have a hand on the handrail. So it was my own sort of lack of presence in that moment, wearing slippery socks, and just not being as attentive as I could. Same thing with the ankle injury. I was hiking, and I wasn't paying attention, and I was moving too fast. So some of you know me, know that that's something I do a lot. I move fast. But those injuries are teaching me, and humbling me. And in that way, an injury can be a healer, because it requires you to adapt. And if you're just going to grumble about it, maybe you haven't, you're selling yourself short in terms of everything that you might be able to learn. So I think how to still be a yoga teacher if you are injured is around knowing your stuff, knowing all the different techniques of teaching, and all of the information around how you convey the teaching, having patience, to not rush to heal before your time, and then using your ability to collaborate. Like I said, designating a person in your class who's going to be the demonstrator. So hopefully that's a pretty solid answer to that question, which is a great question too. Okay, what else?
Well, say hi to Carrie and Kareem.
Hello, ladies. Thanks for jumping on. Appreciate it.
And I see a name I don't recognize. I-N-G-E. Sangelman?
Oh, Inga.
Inga.
Hi, Inga. Yeah.
Sorry, Inga.
She's not local.
Okay. Let's see. Jennifer Vidya asked, what are some of the ways that you bring Seva into your practice?
What are some ways I bring Seva into my practice? So Seva is a word for selfless service. And sometimes it just gets translated as volunteering, right? Volunteering, and that's a big part of it. But it's about, it's all energy and it's all exchange. So, is the energy? What's the matter?
Storage. Something popped up on your screen.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
Is there an appropriate energy exchange? So how does it manifest for me? Well, I do see people, privately for free or vastly discounted rates, because the energy exchange there is that I'm able to offer something, and they're coming back. It's not that I'm expecting, undying gratitude, but the energy that I'm putting into having this exchange with someone makes them go out as a positive light in the world. So that's the exchange for me is, you know, I have a couple of different, it's sort of not necessarily legit, but I do have a Dharma code that's mine and it's very private, but I have a more public Dharma code, and that Dharma code is leave better. That's a very, very important and solid mission in my life, and it's coming to fruition in most of the areas of my life. You know, some are still a work in progress, but it's a simple formula: leave better. So whether I'm, you know, I've got a check in hand or a $20 bill or something like that, is the exchange is one where if I'm putting out that positive, I'm building, my actions are helping to build someone else's self-realization and their positive impact in the world, and then that's the Savea for me. The interesting thing for many people is they want to get acknowledgement for that Savea, and that's okay. I don't need the proverbial hospital wing named after me or anything like that. But that's a way that it sort of feels right for me to have Savea show up. I also, you know, if someone has, and this is just the right way to do business, if someone has a financial need, they can come into my programs, and basically what I say is, you know, the rest of the group is helping to support you. So there's that too. But I don't think, I think it should be done consciously, and I think it should be done where there doesn't necessarily have to be an exchange, right? It's just do the work for the sake of the work. I guess I just contradicted myself, but the exchange for me is to have that person leave better and put that out into the world. And I don't need to have any claim for that. I just want people to be happier, healthier, safer, freer. Yeah, and I guess that's if there's a payback, that's the payback for me. Yeah. Another one?
Oh, yes. We got Katie Dollard's on, and Dawn.
Hi, Katie. Hi,
Dawn is
Dawn.
here with us.
Which Dawn?
Dawn.
D? Dawn.
Sorry, I can't.
All right,
think
I
of
have a
her
couple
last
Dawns.
name off
Hi,
the
Dawn.
top of my head. Sharon asked, what's the most important aspect of your daily yoga practice?
What's the most important aspect of my daily yoga practice? Well, easy. My meditation, my japa, my daily connection to divine force within and without. That's on very rare occasions do I miss that aspect of my practice, and that's the bulk of my meditation practice. And it literally, if I could use a kind of a lower level metaphor, it is the soundtrack of my entire life. It's the it's the playlist for my entire life. There's one song on that playlist, and that is my mantra. That's the most important thing. Literally attuning myself daily to that highest vibration, and remembering my relationship to my deepest self, and remembering my unconditional relationship to the divine, and that is just a tunnel of love. So that's my most important practice, and it takes a while to develop, but I will say for some folks that's not where you would want to start. You'd want to start with purifying the body, purifying your vehicle, and that might include doing asana practice every day, doing bandha work, doing pranayama, strong pranayama, but also the lifestyle aspects, and stop inviting toxicity into your life as much as you possibly can, whether it's too much media, or too many Cheetos, or Mountain Dew, or wine, you know, or that gossipy conversation, that might be somewhere that this is the dinacharya, right? So this might be a very important part of your practice that creates the foundation for you to go into these higher and subtler realms. Clean up your act, and that includes taking care of your body, and that's very, very important. At this point in my life, I do, you know, almost daily asana, but it's not the most important thing for me. I could skip it and still be okay.
She actually has other questions around that idea, around what you eat, how much water you drink, those kinds of things.
Okay, so diet, I mean, I don't think it really matters what I eat. Doesn't matter. You've got to do trial and error, and maybe pick a few what would the word be? Rules or practices to adopt around your diet. Maybe it's to eat less processed foods. Maybe it's to eat less sugar, to drink less caffeine. Those are three probably very prevalent major things for us to consider: caffeine, sugar, processed foods. How you eat. You know, are you multitasking every time you eat? Are you eating mindlessly? Are you eating at odd times every day? You know, we are animals. We like routine. So eating at similar times every day, eating just till you're full. You know, overeating is a habit. Overeating can be a mental illness. We know this. And eating right for your constitution. This is what's going to keep you from having to diet. And this is part of your path of self-realization. You know, in some yoga schools and yoga teachings, you know, vegetarianism is the way to go. For some people, it doesn't work. You know, but a sattvic diet would include lots of fresh foods, plant-centric diet. You know, you might have some animal products. Just being aware of what happens when you eat this way versus that way. What's the result? You know, do you feel better? Do you feel worse? Do you feel neutral? You know, what's your fuel source? So, you know, staying hydrated is very important. We're 70-something% water. I forget how much. 78, I'll say. I don't know. So keeping the you know, your aquifer clean, very important. So I think I'm going to leave it at that. Yeah, because I'm not you, and I'm not Sharon. I'm, you know, yeah. And I would just, again, one last thing is I'd be careful about just jumping into the latest fad of dieting. Or a food plan, just because it's a fad. I think it all has to do with what's your relationship to self up here, what's your relationship to food, and can it be less neurotic? I don't know. That'd probably be a good place to start. How can I be less neurotic about my food? Mm-hmm. I'm not saying, Sharon, that you're neurotic, but that's usually where this is a slippery slope. Yeah. Okay. Bells.
Do you have any recommendation around cardio activities? And she specifically asks for a routine for individuals over 50. Do you have any
cardio? Well, you know, there's in 2 minutes you can get this information on the internet, or go to a gym or whatever. But you know, low impact, longer duration, and you know, steady. Just like we would do with our yoga practice. What does Patanjali say? You know, what's abhyasa? It should be done with enthusiasm, without interruption, over a long period of time. So impactful cardio might be more exciting. You know, not all of us are built to be runners. You know, you want to get your heart rate up, sustain it in an elevated, you know, range for 20 minutes several times a week. You know, I am of the school that yoga, hatha yoga, is not the most efficient cardio aerobic exercise. It's really not. So, you know, you can go to the gym and do the Stairmaster or the elliptical or whatever, or you can go for a brisk walk. You know, whatever suits you. So, I think the exercise component of yoga is very important, to create space and mobility in the joints and to really, you know, lube up the tissues, and then we go into the subtle body aspects of it. But just for pure cardio, like to make sure that physiological system, your cardiovascular system, your respiratory systems are running in good stead, you know, move and do it regularly, and try not to get hurt when you do it. So, yeah.
I see Mandar Ayachit has joined us. Mandar?
I know. Oh, hi. Yeah, that's Anu's husband. Hello, dear. Nice to see you. Well, I'm not seeing you, but hi. Yeah, welcome.
I have one more from Jen Galuli, and she'd like to know, now that you're rooted in the Capital District, what's next for you in Yoga Vidya?
What's next for you and me in Yoga Vidya? So Yoga Vidya is the name of the school that, the umbrella of the school that I just incorporated. You know, primarily training yoga teachers and doing programs that deepen people's personal practices if they don't want to be a yoga teacher, right? So my tagline, which I haven't brought this up for a while, but it's educational and experiential resources for the best life you've ever lived. So Yoga Vidya continues to be primarily a yoga school, kind of I don't want to say a vocational school because it's not strictly a vocational school. It's about people bringing yoga more seamlessly and more powerfully into their lives. So continuing to offer that. The beginning program, the 200-hour, and the more advanced program, which is about 340 hours, those are going very, very well. I'm running 2 200s right now at the same time, as well as the 300. I hope to be able to continue to do that. I also hope that these teachings and the curriculum itself has legs so that we can run more satellite programs as I'm bringing up my faculty. Might be doing more, certainly I'm going to be doing more continuing ed courses where we're doing sort of standalone topics. And certified teachers can get their we have a continuing education requirement, and now Yoga Vidya School is a continuing education provider through Yoga Alliance. So we just launched our first CE course, which was last week on Yoga for Seniors with Carol Murmy. And I'm also continuing, it's been a couple of years in the works, but continuing, we're almost at the point where we're going to be able to launch the first online program, which is not so much about yoga as it is about lifestyle, and of course including yoga, but talking about doing a little bit of it's a self-help program. And hopefully within, I'm going to say in the next month, that should launch. And it's about anybody who wants to feel more poise and more pluck and sort of have better charge of their lives, pulling in simple techniques, simple routines that they can incorporate daily to improve the quality of their life. So that's another thing that's happening with Yoga Vidya, and I'm hoping to have more video courses that are specific to yoga topics. Those are coming up. I've got a list. It's just, finding the time to do all of that. We're revamping and expanding the children's yoga program that hasn't been offered for a couple of years, but that is a wonderful, wonderful component that I want to bring back into the Yoga Vidya fold. So increasing the breadth of what we do, increasing the depth of what we do. As I said, I'm working with faculty, Megan Hogan, who's, just amazing teacher in her own right, and her title is teaching assistant. I want to make a different title, like Princess of the Universe. She's just amazing. Vanessa, who's on the other side of the camera, also a wonderful growing light of Yoga Vidya as a teaching assistant, and a couple of other faculty that teach specialty aspects. So all of this is going to come up, and I remember about a year ago my teacher, Rod Stryker, half jokingly saying, because he said, "I hardly ever see you anymore, Lauren," and I said, "I know, I'm really busy," and he said, "You're building your empire." And it was tongue in cheek, but I don't want to think of myself as an empress, but I want to think of myself as the hub of something that is very inspirational and healing for people. And so that's what at least initially what I hope is we're going to have more of a what's the word, remote presence, so more of an online presence, and more impact there, as well as continuing to grow our on-the-ground programs. So thank you for asking that. That's a great question. And Jen, you're gonna be part of that kids yoga training expansion. So yeah. Any other questions?
That's it.
Okay. So I thought I would just leave you with a little bit of just a teaching. I given some stuff that's been going on with my own life and my interface with some of my students and some of the challenges that they have been, a few of them in particular have been facing around, very, very powerful and possibly negative situations in their lives. What do we do when we're faced with something that's super challenging and surprising? And hopefully this is going to be, again, maybe I'll expand on it in the next session, but I'd like to turn you to the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 7, which is the teaching on wisdom, and how Krishna, as sort of that Godhead, the personification of universal wisdom, if you will, says, what are we made of? What are we really made of? If we could objectify before we go back into the subjective, we are made of all of the elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. But we're also our mind, our intellect, and our ego. So we've actually not just got 5 components, but we've got 8 components that make up who we are and how we interface with the world. And the beautiful thing is that our yoga practice, and Tantra in particular, which is, what Yoga Vidya is a tantric school. It's not just a yoga school. Has techniques and philosophies and programs and teachings that help you to examine all aspects, all 8 of these aspects, in a way where we can actually both make sense of it, believe it, and begin to manage and master these aspects of who we are. Not just the gross elements, but what's happening with our mind, our intellect, and our ego. And without denying any of this, how can we use these things creatively to their best possible use, so that we are working towards our own self-realization, which is why we're here. So a lot of what our reality seems to be is nothing more than a manifestation of our perception. So here's how I'll close. We get into the trap of believing that what we perceive is right, or what we perceive is true. And we know that a lot of the times our perception is misguided, misdirected. We're not really seeing reality. So how do we begin to shift that so that we're actually seeing the truth? And that is very simple. We need to spend more time by ourselves. doing our practice, managing our energy, getting quiet, just following our breath, staying inspired, and humbly honoring the gift of our life. And this all leads to sort of meditation, right? So this is the way of shifting that perception. We have to do a little bit of engineering work, right? Get in there with our tiny tools. But if we do this consistently over time, our perception, like a telescope, is going to turn towards the direction of what's really true and what's really going to be beneficial to us, not just in this moment in our small, petty selves, but what's really going to be beneficial to us as we strive towards living the life that incorporates capital S, big self. So our evolution, our self-realization, our mighty purpose, as my teacher would say. So getting lost in the mood, getting lost in a thought, getting lost in an emotion is okay for a moment, but we need to step back and understand. Again, this is an Upanishadic sloka. The mind is always changing and never new, and the soul is never changing and always true. That always new, sorry. The mind is always changing, never new. The soul is never changing, always new. If you don't step back from the busyness of your own life and sort of let that memory, that perception begin to shift towards that mighty truth and your own mighty purpose, you're not getting the full benefit of what our yoga practice can be about. So I'm going to leave you with that. And thank you so much for joining and listening and asking the questions. And we will be doing another one of these in a couple of months, or maybe sooner. Keep an eye out for it. And I wish you all a wonderful day. And don't forget to practice. Namaste. Namaste.